Hello, my name is Andrew Sheng, the chairman of the International Advisory Board of the Georgetown Institute of Open and Advanced Studies at Wawasan Open University. We're delighted and honored to have the presence of Mr. Wouter Vasbinder, my very good friend, who has been very much involved in the establishment of complexity institutes in Europe and Singapore, and I will leave it to him to describe what is a complexity institute, why it is very important to have multidisciplinary approach to modern problems. Jan, welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Jan. Where to start, Andrew? Maybe where the whole idea of interest in complexity science and institute started, which was about 15 years ago, when I was quite heavily involved in organizing and setting up large-scale research programs in the interconnection between industry, academy, and government. And in the process of doing so, I got to know the activities of the Santa Fe Institute in Mexico, New Mexico, in the United States. Actually, I knew John Holland, who was one of the early people of that institute, a long time before that. But I got interested in what the New Mexico Institute did, or Santa Fe Institute did, and they had from an institute that initially started as a totally interdisciplinary institute. They still are this interdisciplinary institute, but they became the group that catalyzed complexity science very largely. And so the combination of this interdisciplinarity and this complexity became interesting to me. And so I started in, I think it was 2006 or so in the Netherlands, to set up a similar sort of institute for Europe, which worked pretty well for a couple of years until the big financial crisis of 2009 hit it. And then one of the founding fathers was of the institute in Europe, which was called Paralimes, was Bertel Anderson, who then became the president of the NTU in Singapore, the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. And he said when we ran short of money in Europe, he said, why don't you come and do the same thing in Singapore? And so I was invited to set up a complexity program in Singapore with the initial big aim to set up a complexity institute, a research institute. That was established in 2014. And then whatever was left of it, which was largely the thing that I really enjoy, which is to get people from different disciplines and walks of life together at a very high level for really challenging discussions. That became Paralimes at NTU.
Yes, it's so exciting because I participate in some of your conferences. The ability to bring Nobel laureates, serious thinkers from physics, biotechnology, neuroscience, economics, the whole range, right? And to catalyze so that you transform the way of thinking, because most university departments are divided into silos, islands of specialization. The idea that you can bring cross-discipline to talk to each other is very, very critical. But Jan, tell us something about why it is so important, the work that you were doing for the Dutch government, to integrate the government, business, and academia in a research technology direction.
Okay, well, it is so important because these are, for many reasons, but the ones that I really think are the key is the fact that industry, government, and university are working in totally different arenas. They use totally different currencies to work in those arenas. In academia, it is the peer review or the peer recognition that counts. In industry, it is the bottom line that counts. And in government, it is power or influence that counts. And careers are made with those currencies in each of those arenas. And yet, they all need the same thing at one point, is knowledge. And knowledge typically is generated in universities and used for profit, or to make profit in industry, and used for influence, to create influence in government. And if you put them together in a room, they never come to the negotiation system, because these currencies don't match. And so I found it very important and very exciting to develop these kind of programs between the three, because you had to deal with the fact that currency that is valid in the university is not valid you had to find an independent, a new currency. And that is exciting each time you do it.
Wonderful, because that is the model that the Georgetown Institute of Open and Advanced Studies is trying to achieve. I personally always believe in ABC, academia, business, and civil service must talk to each other.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because each are very big bureaucracies, and they, as you say, they use different language, and they have different currencies, or the communication channels are very isolated from each other. The result is there are complaints that the civil service, which makes policy, are not getting enough information, data, research from the universities, or they always claim that they're not current enough. Well, you're academic, you're ivory tower. The business community says, well, you're not producing the graduates that I need, right? And then the academia says, you don't understand what we're trying to do. We're trying to advance the frontier of knowledge. So we're not talking as one, whereas we are one society. We are one planet. We're one, global economy. So trying to get this is very critical. Now, one thing that we hope that you give us some of your views is, because you're a physicist.
Originally, yes.
No, but you still have a great understanding of science and its role in policy formulation, which most people don't understand. They say that a physicist is a guy who thinks in quantum terms, and again is way out there, nothing related to policy, but it is related to policy. So how would you advise, a university like Wawasan, how to think about, how to operate in this new disrupted technology world?
Wow. Well, it depends how you see the disruption of this. But for one thing is I think the disruption that you probably allude to, which is the digital disruption more than anything else, or the digital technology disruption, is one that hit, I think, and hit the core of universities, simply because the universities forgot what they were all about. And so there's a common sort of denominator for total misunderstanding now, rather than understanding that you want, and is that this digital technology is what is ruling our lives. Unfortunately it is, but it shouldn't. And so one way to I think to get back to the essence of people's lives in terms of that's got to be a complicated sentence because I'm thinking of it loud more or less, but to get back to the essence of government and of role of the relation between universities and government and the advisory role they can play, and also vice versa actually, is to ignore the role of technology and look at what society needs from universities, and then see to what extent technology can help accomplish this, rather than to let yourself be led by the technology and then see that all kind of things don't work anymore in the normal way of life. It's not a good answer to your question, but it's I think that the word disruption is a disruptive sort of disrupts the thinking about it. It's not disruptive. it is disrupted. It is the technology overtook the normal way, the way people think. They think that they're dependent on technology. They're not, and they shouldn't be.
Well, the medium has become the message, right? That was the old.
I would tend to disagree with it. I mean,
Yeah.
it has become, but it
It
should
has
not.
become. You should.
should
I agree with you. So we're so obsessed or enamored, or we're so carried away by the technology, the powers of technology, that we forget what we're really trying to achieve,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And that's a very, very wise thought. What is the role of university if we only just produce people who know how to use social media, but not realizing that the ethics behind social media is in deep trouble, right?
Yes. Yes. And one other thing, the people that you want to teach social media are already much more apt to do it than
Yes.
the teachers.
That's right.
So you're handling it from the wrong side in many ways, if that's what you want to do as university.
That's right. So we are in this very difficult stage when knowledge is moving very, very fast, and as you say, the young are actually more apt, more comfortable in this technology than the teachers.
Yes.
Very often.
Yeah.
And so we now need to engage, and at the same time, because the university needs to produce students and knowledge for the community, not just the business community, but also the civil service and civil society. The disconnect becomes even greater, right? And this is from economics. John Maynard Keynes said, we are all ruled by dead professors of 30 years ago. We learn old theories we don't apply, today, and that's exactly what we are facing. So, now having worked in, in Singapore, at Nanyang Technological University, running the syntax, and now going back to Europe, which is itself facing a very different phase. What sort of ideas would you think that would help us for a middle income emerging market for our university to think about advancing to the next level? Would you have any reflections on this?
You mean in terms of curriculum?
Yeah, it's just the knowledge sharing, right? Knowledge is basically a network. It's a network between different people. To me, Europe actually runs some of the best universities in the world. Yeah. But their engagement with Asia actually is limited. And that's why I personally feel it would really help a lot if Wawasan University can have more links with European universities and research institutes, so that we can exchange ideas and very rapidly, mutually work together to advance our capacity to produce knowledge in students.
Well, knowledge is a peculiar kind of thing, actually. You said that knowledge is there's so much more knowledge being generated at the moment. I doubt whether that is the case. It depends on how you look at knowledge.
Right.
If you say that the number of applications of existing knowledge is explosively growing, then I fully agree with you. And that is also the technology coming out of the basic knowledge that has been established and is still being established at universities. But essentially, most of the universities that I know, at least at the present in Europe, are not knowledge producers anymore in the original sense of the word. Mm-hmm. They're looking for applications for their whole process of getting money for their research is based, has a condition that it should be applicable, whatever that comes out of it. The original knowledge production was trying to understand how the world functions, how nature functions, and all the basic knowledge basic science is still being taught, but it deals with that kind of knowledge. The knowledge that you refer to is a much broader area of knowledge, which deals with applications, not so much the generation of new understanding of nature. Now, if you take that into account, then I think one of the things that universities should do, especially universities like the one in Singapore, and I don't know your university yet, but I would assume that is the case, though, is to make wise choices in what kind of applications you would want to have, and be very keen in picking the right knowledge for it.
The issue is that science, you see, what is now happening, if I put it very simply, is because what you've raised is very controversial. It can be disputed because different people have different views on this issue. Is as follows. Why do we want to do into finance? Because that's where the money is. And now a lot of young people says, why do I want to go into technology? Because that's where the money is, right? And yet there's a dilemma here. Is finance delivering for society what we thought the role of money was? Now, very famous wit said, money is always there except it's in different pockets. And from the 1990s onwards, money became more and more concentrated in fewer and fewer pockets, right? So when the banks crashed, the whole system got affected, and very unequal. And now we face the same problem. If you go into technology without understanding what technology is and its negative sides, then what has now happened is what is the ethics of technology, which creates natural monopolies. A few companies are now worth more value than half the world. I mean, if that's a kind of way to think about it. And so fewer and fewer people who have access to that knowledge are enriching themselves at the expense of the majority. So it's these issues that you are saying that the universities should question.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
think about.
Absolutely. And I was referring to a large extent to what they call the hard sciences. And that's at NTU, which is basically a technological university.
Yes.
They talk about the hard sciences and the application there. It is true for all the other sciences as well. There is a lot to be learned from the narratives that have been developed in social sciences as to how to deal with for instance, how to deal with the fact that knowledge is different in university and government and industry, the sense of what it means. The narratives from social sciences can help you understand that. So for a university like this, to make sure that, it sounds so as if I know really all the answers, it's not the case, but to focus on that narrative, or part of that narrative, to give that to your students, to make sure that they understand that narrative and that they can actually expand on it, that would be very, very valuable. It's not only valuable for Singapore, for Penang, or for Malaysia, it would be valuable for the whole world.
It is. It's educating our students not to say, well, at the end of it, you just get a job, because that job itself may disappear 3 years from now because of new technology. Yeah. So what we want to create are students who are adaptive, who are resilient, who are creative, who are willing to question.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I'm not talking about just questioning of authority, but the questioning of why do we do this? What are we doing this for? Yeah. And so that's the kind of questions that you, as a scientist and as a person who is experienced in complexity science, has so much experience in seeing what life is no longer so simple. It is complex.
It is complex.
It is complex.
And for some reason that interests me tremendously, there's more understanding of the complexity in the eastern part of the world than it is in the western part of the world. I don't know whether it's true, but at least that's my sense. The modern science has been built on the Descartesian sort of physics, or reductionist physics, the approach of life. If this problem is too complicated or too complex, you just reduce it to something that you can solve. And if you can sort of generalize that solution, then you have a beautiful law that tells you how nature works. But in practice, you've eliminated all the complexity of the world in that process.
That's right. That's right.
And so I don't know, Andrew, whether it's true, but I honestly believe, after having lived for 7 years in Singapore, that the Chinese mind is much more, whether it's history or culture or whatever, complexity is embedded in that mind. So the understanding that there's a relation, that everything is related, and that you cannot pull one plug and then, there's not one we discussed this morning, one silver bullet for that is something that is understood almost automatically, I think, in the Chinese mind, whatever that is.
Yeah,
and it is not understood in
it's not just the Chinese mind, it's the Indian mind,
yeah.
It's the Arab mind, it's the Persian mind, it's it's the Mongolian mind, it's
but it's not the Western European mind.
Yeah, and the reason for this, I think, was both the success of the West and its weakness, if I would put it this way, right? The success was you can reduce very big complexities into relatively simple universal principles that are timeless, and you reduce a huge complexity into very simple mathematical principles. The whole, E is to the mc squared explains everything, right? Geography, sort of gravity and the speed of light and energy. And yet, what is the wisdom that we have lost in knowledge?
Yeah.
Okay? And that's T.S. Eliot, as you know. And T.S. Eliot got these ideas from both Indian Upanishads and Chinese, Tao Te Ching kind of philosophy. So, to a large extent, the East has been trying to grapple with complexity, but has not been intellectually able to make that breakthrough in the reductionist to mathematical simplicity. And that the West is superb. There's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's exactly the thing that we want our young people to begin to understand and relearn, in a sense.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very good focus.
Yeah, to be more self-confident in our ability to learn, to question, and then to build on, science with empirical verification.
Yes. Yeah, it sounds to me that you're on a good track. If that's what you.
Well, no, it's not. I'm on a good track. I feel that it's a great path that we're going to work together.
Yeah.
My belief has always been, none of us is smarter than all of us. So having you here, John, is a great step forward for our International Advisory Board and for the Institute and for the University. Thank you very much.
Thank you.